This includes mutual respect, manner. Please note that as the presiding officer, the mayor's direction in matters of process and decorum should be followed, and that use of the gavel indicates all conversations must conclude and everyone in attendance should come to order and attention. Welcome, and thank you for your participation.
Thank you very much.
Motion to excuse Councilmember Davis.
Second. There's a motion and a second to excuse Councilmember Davis. Please register your vote. And thank you, that passes unanimously. She is out on a medical issue. All right, next we have reports of action taken in closed session. City Attorney.
Council took no reportable action in closed session.
Okay, thank you. And I think I'm going to go to the city manager, I think, or city attorney. There's some introductions, I think, from both of you this evening.
We have a number of new staff members to introduce, and Brian's going to start with his introduction.
Okay.
I'd like to introduce the newest member of the city attorney's office, John Belisle. Why don't you stand up, John?
John?
First of all, I'd like to thank the city council for approving John's position. We now have 5 attorneys in the office, including myself. And John is our entry-level position, deputy city attorney. He comes with about 4 years of experience as a lawyer. Before that, he served this country in the United States Navy. He comes to us from private practice, and we have high hopes that he'll be with us for a while and doing good work for the city.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you and welcome. Welcome to Santa Clara. And I think we'll keep you a little bit busy. Yes, thank you. Thanks for coming this evening.
I have a number of new introductions, and I too want to thank the City Council for approving some new positions as part of the budget, and also acknowledge that when I started this organization, there were several vacancies, and so we are beginning to get staffed up. I want to start with our new HR director, Teresa Zadroga-Haas. Seeing if she can just stand.
Teresa.
And I'll just read a little bit about her background. Teresa comes to Santa Clara with over 16 years of public sector experience in human resources. Most recently, she was the director of human resources with Manhattan Beach, and she has also been a human resources director for the city of Stockton, Mendocino County, as well as the city of Eureka. And she has expertise in labor relations, development and implementation of initiatives to improve employee engagement, productivity and recognition, process improvements, organizational developments, and other employee training and development. She holds a degree from UC Irvine and an MBA from Cal State Northridge. Welcome, Teresa.
Welcome, Teresa.
Our other position that I'd like to introduce is our new Assistant City Clerk, Nora Pimentel. Nora, you may have already met her, but during the last few years, Nora has served as city clerk for the city of Saratoga and the city of Tracy. Prior to her appointment, she worked as senior deputy city clerk with the city of San Jose and deputy city clerk for the city of East Palo Alto. She has achieved the designation of certified municipal clerk in 2009, and in 2017, she earned her master municipal clerk status. She is also an active member of both the International Institute of Municipal Clerks and the City Clerks Association of California, and has served as a board member of the City Clerks Association of California and was regional director for Central Valley. She is a notary public and speaks Spanish.
Welcome, Teresa.
Welcome, welcome, Nora.
Nora, Teresa, John, yes.
I also want to introduce our PIO Director of Communications, Lenka Wright. Most recently, Lenka served as the City of Bellevue's, Washington's Chief Communication Officer for the past 2 years. Prior to that, she was the Assistant Director of Communications for the City of San Jose for nearly 6 years, and previous to that, she was the Communications and Media Relations Manager for the City of Abilene, Texas for almost 4 years. In addition, she is a certified public manager through Texas State University, San Marcos. She holds a bachelor's degree in telecommunications and political science from Indiana University and a master's degree in communications arts from New York Institute of Technology. Before her public service career, Lenka was an award-winning news anchor reporter at TV stations across the country. Welcome, Lenka.
Welcome.
The next position I'm sure will be very familiar to the City Council, and that is Lynn Lamb. She is our newly appointed Assistant Director, City Auditor, and Stadium Authority Auditor. I'm happy to introduce Lynn Lamb to as the position of City Auditor and Assistant Finance Director. Lynn received her Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration with concentrations in Finance and Accounting at San Jose State University, and she is also a certified public accountant. She has been in the role of Assistant Treasurer, Account Manager at the Alameda County Water District since April 2014. She has extensive auditing experience, and Lynn worked for Santa Clara as a principal accountant from 2012 to 2014, and we are excited to have her back. Welcome,
Very excited.
Lynn.
Thank you, Lynn.
Our other assistant finance director is Ken Lee. I'm also excited to announce the appointment of Ken Lee to the position of assistant finance director. Ken received his Bachelor's of Arts degree in economics at the University of California, Berkeley. Ken worked for the City of San Jose for 15 years in the City Manager's Budget Office and most recently for the City of Sunnyvale as the Assistant Director of Finance. Ken's vast knowledge and background in budgeting will be an asset to the department as we work to implement the many changes in the budget division, such as moving to a 2-year budget, preparing a 10-year financial forecast in November, and updating the actual budget documents. I'm happy to be adding Ken to our talented finance team and want to recognize that Ken is distinguished in that he has overseen every area in San Jose's $3 billion budget, whether it was capital, operating, or other special enterprises. And so it really shows the complexity of his budget expertise, and just wanted to call that out because I'm very proud of that. Thank you, Ken.
Welcome, Ken.
And then last but not least, I want to introduce Mark Giovanetti as our new purchasing manager. I would like to acknowledge that Mark holds a Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration from Santa Clara University. He has 23 years of public and private sector purchasing experience. Most recently, he was Deputy Director of Purchasing and Risk Management for the City of San Jose, where his responsibilities included procurement and contracting activities for the acquisition of supplies, materials, equipment, information technology, and professional services. Mark also oversaw the city's insurance and risk function responsibilities for the planning, organizing, coordination, and execution of a comprehensive risk management program. There's a theme here, right? Mark's experience includes leading the vendor selection and implementation of e-procurement solutions, writing policies and procedures, and numerous business process improvements. I've invited, Mark has been doing about a 90 to 120 day observation of the city organizations and its procurement processes and contract oversight. And I've invited him to come make a presentation later this year to the City Council so that the Council really understands the true state of our procurement processes, where we have gaps, and the work that he's already completed to streamline and strengthen our processes. So you'll be seeing more of Mark very shortly. Welcome, Mark.
Welcome. Welcome. Is that it?
That's everyone.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
You filled a lot of gaps in
We
our system, and I feel like we're with all this this talented pool here. We're in very good hands, and our residents are in very good hands to get. Well, oh yeah, we're going to run like a well-oiled machine here and be able to provide the service to our residents. So thank you all, and welcome to Santa Clara. Okay. Next, we have continuances and exceptions, and I think we have one item that we're looking to continue, City Manager.
I wanted to defer item 3 either to September 18th or October 2nd. There's 2 policies here that the council would act on. I'd like to notice them better so that there's full transparency around the 2 different policy amendments.
Do you have a preference of the 18th or the
looking
October?
At Walter Hool. The October 2nd.
Okay,
Give him a little
is
extra
there
time.
a motion to continue that item, to defer it to October 2nd?
So moved.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion by the council or the public on deferring that item? Please come forward. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Council. My name is Robert O'Keefe, and I do want to welcome everyone who's mentioned tonight, but I think I'm very disappointed that the council has not even acknowledged that today is September 11th.
We will.
17 years ago, one of the worst days of our nation's history. It's fine if you adjourn to it, but very few people will be here. I thought it would be appropriate that we took a moment of silence at the beginning of the meeting, and I wish you would do now. Thank you.
All right. I have no problem with that at all because we have a prepared event at the end of the evening, but if we would like to acknowledge what happened on September 11th at the beginning of the meeting, I think we can, thank you for the suggestion, take a moment of silence at this moment to do that. Okay. Thank you again. We'll be talking about this at the end of our meeting. Is there a vote to continue that one item? Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Are there any other continuances and exceptions from the council? Any from the public? City Clerk, do you have any cards on continuance exceptions? Okay, then we will move on to our consent calendar. All items are approved with one motion. Is there anyone on the council who would like to remove a consent calendar item for discussion? Seeing none, anyone from the public? City Clerk? No one? So there's a motion to approve the consent calendar and a second. Discussion on that? No, please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have public presentations. City Clerk, do you have any? Is there any member of the public wanting to make a presentation? Please come forward on any item that's not on the agenda. Please come forward. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Rob Jordanek. I live in resident of Santa Clara. I'm here to talk about Measure M. As far as I know, it's not on the agenda for today.
So you can go ahead.
Okay.
You can speak about it.
Yeah, Measure M, it's on the ballot for November 2018. And as you know, it would be the first step to invite the commercial marijuana industry into our city. And this measure would basically put the city's stamp of approval on recreational drug use. It would basically be telling the youth in our city that recreational drug use is okay, as long as we make money off of it. I'd like to request the city present a public viewing of a documentary film. It's called The Chronic State, CHRONIC State. The film shows the impacts of inviting the cannabis industry into the city. I mean, if you think the stadium brings problems, you have no idea the kind of problems that would bring to our city. I'd also like to invite my fellow Santa Clara residents to watch this film. You could find it on Google or search engine. Search for Chronic State Video on Google. You could find it. It's about 55 minutes. It's well worth your time to watch this film before you decide how to vote in November. I recommend a no vote. Thanks.
All right, thank you for the information as well. Anyone else?
Mayor, yes, there's a card for Carolyn Donnell.
Carolyn Donnell, please come forward. Thank you. We put public presentations in the beginning of the meeting. We changed it.
So, yes, my name is Carolyn Donnell, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Heart of the Valley Services for Seniors. Glenda Cressup, the executive director, she had a previous commitment and she wasn't able to make it tonight, so she asked me to come in her place. Not that I can take her place, but I'll try. Because of the late hour, we weren't able to get a client to come and be here and talk to, and so what I have is a letter from one of our wonderful little clients who, she's low income, lives alone, and is disabled, and she sent us a little thank you note after our August and Christmas. We had a Christmas and August event where we took things out to homebound seniors, and so this is from her. This is her letter. My heartfelt thank you for brightening my otherwise dismal week, having a Christmas elf bring me a surprise gift package. It was one of those weeks that held bronchitis and my having a personal memorial from my late mother's passing years ago. Words can't describe how uplifting the lovely gifts were to a senior living alone with no family. I opened each gift with excitement, truly as if it was December. Just having a warm hello from basically someone I did not know made such a difference in my mental outlook. I will treasure my gifts, especially knowing that there are angels in the background who offer assistance, kindness, and compassion like no other. Thank you to all the angels that take part in Heart of the Valley activities. I so appreciate everything that you do behind the scenes. Everyone, including the inner staff, drivers, and assistants, are simply fabulous. It can make going to the doctors actually fun. Thanks again for thinking of me and surrounding me with angel wings. It makes walking life's path a little less lonely. Heart of the Valley is a little small, very small little agency that you guys already know about to a certain extent, but that we try to help seniors stay independent as long as possible. And everybody except for 3 part-time people are volunteers. It's all volunteer agency. And I just wanted to come in and read this to you, the appreciation but with our appreciation is to the angels of the city of Santa Clara and their support that they have given us over the years, and we just want to thank you for supporting us all these years. That's all I have to say.
Well, thank you for your good work, and thank you for sharing that with us this evening. Are there any other public presentations? Okay, seeing none, we have no consent items pulled for discussion. So next is our public hearing general business. The first item we have is item A, informational report regarding the November 2018 election, including background information on the Code of Ethics and Values, previous consultant services, and candidate forums. Is it City Clerk? Are you taking that? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes. First, I would just like to say that there's been quite a bit of confusion, misinterpretation of information, misinformation, and accusations as it relates to conducting candidate forums for the November election. To be clear, all communications that have been issued from the city on the topic of candidate forums have been in an attempt to provide clear and accurate information. Yet a false narrative appears to persist, and I just want to say that was never our intent. I do want to personally acknowledge and express appreciation to Silicon Valley Voice's editorial board for their clarification from their initial article and acknowledging the professional and dedicated staff within the city clerk's office who works countless hours and often 7 days a week to ensure that Santa Clara is ready for district-based elections. We remain committed to having the city conduct an ethical, fair, and impartial election this November. At this time, I would like to set the record straight. There was never a decision by the city clerk, city manager, city attorney, or mayor regarding candidate forums this November. As part of the November 2016 election debrief at the Ethics Committee in 2017, the Democracy Consultant noted shortcomings of the forums and made recommendations. The committee took no action. The council policy regarding candidate forums remains in effect. I reached out to the League of Women Voters during the week of August 27th During the late afternoon on September 7th, the League of Women Voters confirmed their interest in organizing 2 candidate forums for the November election, one for mayor and city clerk candidates, and one for those that are running for office in districts 2 and 3. Later that day, they confirmed October 11th as the date for the forum for the candidates running for office for city clerk and mayor. And today, the League confirmed October 17th for the forums for candidates running for office in districts 2 and 3. The forums will be televised on Channel 15 and live streamed on the city's YouTube and Facebook channels, and will all be held here in the council chambers. You'll see there are 2 different start times for each of the different forums. So City Clerk Forum will begin at 6:30 on October 11th. Mayor candidates will be at 7:45 on October 11th. On October 17th at 6:30, candidates running for District 2 will be invited to the forum. And on October 17th at 7:45, those that are running for District 3. The forums will be posted on the city's website, as well as announced on the city's social media accounts. In 1996, the council adopted Council Policy 028, Televised Candidate Forums, which states it is the policy of the City of Santa Clara to allow holding a candidate forum in the City Council chambers to be broadcast live on the municipal cable channel and rebroadcast 4 times. The League of Women Voters or another neutral organization will organize the forum. The League of Women Voters indicated to the city clerk's office that they had also been working with the CAC over the past several weeks to conduct a forum. It's unclear whether the CAC had the intent of conducting the forums with the League on behalf of the city, which honestly could have potentially made the public dialogue less divisive. But regardless, at this time, it's been confirmed that the League will independently be conducting the forums scheduled. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to provide this information to the council and to the public. I genuinely want to acknowledge that it is regrettable that the topic of candidate forums has created such a controversy, but I do hope this information was helpful and eased the angst felt by the council, candidates, and the community on the topic. And I'm available for questions.
Okay, council members. Are there questions from the council? Vice Mayor Watanabe?
Thank you, City Clerk. Just to be clear, is it confirmed that the CAC will have their own independent candidate forum with the League of Women Voters?
I don't have any confirmation of that because I've not actually spoken to the CAC on the topic of candidate forums.
Okay. And it was the CAC that did contact you through an email asking the questions, and based on the dates, it sounds like it was around the same time that they were looking to do an independent, possibly an independent forum themselves.
That's correct.
Okay, it would have been nice if definitely if they had shared it and saved some of the angst. That's very disappointing. So anyway, thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kolstad?
I just want to thank the staff for doing this. It's an excellent job. I'm sure the people will enjoy it. And thank you all very much for doing this.
Thank you. Councilmember Mahan?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, City Clerk, for the information and for responding to my request earlier for some minutes and so forth. So the minutes of the Ethics Committee after the last election cycle indicated that the City Manager's Office was going to send out an RFP for an elections official and ethics advisor, consultant, essentially, to conduct some of the activities related to the forum and the election process. Was that ever done?
Not to my knowledge. Looking to Jennifer.
Yes, so the Ethics Committee did discuss an RFP for an ethics consultant. The primary focus of it was actually to look at the Code of Ethics and Values since it had been last adopted in 2000, so obviously it has been quite some time. And so the topic was added to the Ethics Committee work plan, and I will confirm the date, but I want to say it was either late 2000s, I want to say mid to late 2016. The RFP was never issued for the ethics consultant due to other priorities and workload issues, but the committee did review an initial draft of the RFP.
Well, earlier minutes had indicated that Fred Keeley, our prior ethics consultant or elections consultant, had given a very thorough debriefing and some recommendations, and I thought that was what was going to be the RFP, following our standard practice of having a consultant on board to conduct the initial candidates workshop and to hear any grievances or complaints, to conduct the forum, not to conduct the forum, well, actually, he did conduct the forum in 2016, and so forth, and have the final word forum and those types of activities.
So I can say that the the concept of issuing an RFP for the ethics consultant was added to the work plan before the November 2016 election. And so it wasn't as a result of Mr. Keeley's work product or his report, as I recall, but more that the committee wanted to review the ethics and values and also the behavioral standards for public meetings.
Okay, well, it's not the way I read the minutes, but I'm not going to argue the point. I guess my question comes down to, in the past, because you also were very good about providing me with the minutes of previous council action on having an election or ethics consultant, and we had spent $65,000, and I think at one time $100,000 are added to the consultant's contract and so forth. Are we going to have any kind of consultant this year, as we've had since we've started this program?
The use of a consultant by public funds is not something that has been planned for nor direction given to pursue a consultant for the November 2018 election.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else on the dais? All right. What kind of action are you looking for? Is this an informational memo?
Yes, Mayor, just informational
file.
tonight, no action needed.
All right, let's go to the audience first. Is there any member of the public? Do you have any cards on this?
I do not have any cards on this.
Okay, is there any member of the public wanting to speak? Please come forward. Yes.
Rob Jordanek, Santa Clara. Thank you for scheduling the candidate forum. We also need a forum to equally present both sides of the proposed city ballot measures, M and N, especially Measure M, which I talked about earlier. It would invite commercial cannabis into our city. It would have many negative impacts. It's almost as if some people are trying to quietly bring in commercial cannabis without any kind of proper debate. So I'd like an explanation why that was not included on the schedule of for the forums. And I'd like to formally request that you expand the forums to include presenting both sides of the city ballot measures, M and N. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, Bob O'Keefe here again, excuse me, resident of Santa Clara, and I'm also a candidate for city clerk. And I would I thank the acting city clerk for the informational bulletin. And I just want to say, when I pulled my papers back in August, everything that Ms. Yamagumi just said was told to me. She said that, I specifically asked a question, are there going to be any candidate forums? And she said at the time, there's none scheduled, possibly the League of Women Voters, and to check back. So I don't think there's any conspiracy to cancel forums or whatever. I just glad that they're going forward. And I did get contacted by email today from the League of Women Voters that asked for my availability on the 11th. So thank you very much, and let's just move on with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please come forward. All right, is there a motion?
Motion to note and file?
Motion to note and file, second. Any discussion? Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. The next is action on Councilmember Mahan's request for a candidate forum for all Santa Clara candidates. Councilmember Mahan?
Well, in light of this city clerk's report and the good news that we are going forward with forums, that's great news. So action is probably not needed unless we want to consider adding asking the league to add some kind of a forum on the measures as well. I see some
If there's any
nods.
harm
so-
in that
Okay, then I'll
at
make that
all.
motion to add that to the forums, and
And request
the
that they
league,
add.
the league can get the appropriate neutral parties to argue both sides.
Okay, so that's a motion and a note and file of the request. Same? Is that part of it? Yes, okay. A motion second. Is there anyone, I have a card, Mario Boza, if you'd like to come forward, please. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Manager. How are you? One of the things that I was going to speak about, you already took care of it, having the forum, which I thought it was very important. I wish we could have been brought in the forefront a little bit sooner, not after the absentee ballot starts to come out. I think what is very important, especially in this election period, since it's the first time we ever had a division in our city regarding district elections, and also the importance of our mayor's election too. But I'm glad to see that we're going to have a forum on the 11th. But in all essence, I wish it could have happened a little bit sooner, and the city clerk's office could have started the ball rolling since prior to this happening. So I look forward to watching the forums and being part of it. Is that okay?
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Anyone else? Okay, so there's a motion and a second on the floor. Note and file, and also talk to the, seek assistance for the cannabis measure. Please register your vote. Oh, both measures, yes, I'm sorry. It's measure, what, M and?
And an M.
Yes, measure.
M and N?
And then
M and N,
M and
that's right.
N. Okay, and that passes unanimously. Thank you, and thank you for that suggestion as well.
Mayor, I just wanted
Yes.
to add that we are going to have a study session on the whole cannabis issue. I can't remember the date right now. I'm looking back at the tentative schedule, but there was something planned to discuss before the November election on this issue.
But that won't be on the tax, though. The tax is on the ballot, and what's going to come before you are the actual regulations that would go in place
Right.
if the tax is passed.
Right.
So we will discuss the regulations and that and how we regulate it in Santa Clara.
Yeah.
Right, but the regulations
Absent of,
are not on the
separate
ballot.
from the tax.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay.
But it could
I
have
don't
an
have
impact.
a date exactly. I'm not certain that it's before November 6th, but I will have that date. They're researching. October 30th.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
It's like magic.
October 30th, we'll be discussing regulating cannabis in Santa Clara. So for the gentleman that was up here, it's an important meeting to attend, probably study session. So check the city agendas going forward. All right, our next item is, okay, we deferred item 3. So we're on item 4, a public hearing, fiscal year 2017-18 consolidated annual performance and evaluation reports for the use of HUD funds. And so this is a public hearing. We'll open that. Is there, yes, I see they're rushing to the microphone here. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Eric Calleja. I'm the Housing Development Officer for our Housing and Community Services Division. I'll be presenting the 17-18 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report. It's a mouthful, so we're going to call it CAPER for the rest of this. Okay. So the CAPER is part of the federal funding grant cycle. As you can see on the slide there, the administration of HUD funds is an ongoing process throughout the whole year. The cycle revolves around the 5-year consolidated plan, or CON plan. The CON plan identifies the goals that the city has identified. The CON plan was created back in 2014 with significant input from public and key stakeholders. Each year, the annual action plan is developed through a community outreach process, and funding priorities are identified. These annual action plans detail the activities and programs that will be implemented in order to address the con plan goals. At the end of the program year, reports are submitted by the funded agencies detailing the number of beneficiaries, demographic data, and their successes and challenges. These reports are then consolidated and presented to HUD via the CAPER. And again, each annual action plan must have programs and activities that address the stated goals in the con plan. The con plan goals are up there. We have 6 of them. The creation of affordable housing, addressing homelessness concerns, public services for low-income beneficiaries, fair housing services, economic development, and public facility improvements. Under each goal, you could see examples of activities that target those con plan goals. Different types of funding resources are used for programming the activities. The dark orange part explains the total amount of funds that were made available in this past program year for each funding source, and the light orange breaks down those totals. The city receives 2 different types of funding from HUD, CDBG funds and home funds. And at the top of the light orange area, you can see what our allocations were for the 17-18 fiscal year. And home funds are pretty restrictive. They can only be used to create affordable housing opportunities. And the City of Santa Clara, we primarily use home funds for our tenant-based rental assistance program, or TBRA. Our TBRA program assists homeless families with deposit and rental subsidies. And we augment the HUD funds with local funds to provide the participants with case management services. And CDBG funds, the middle column there, are a bit more flexible, and we use those funds for activities and projects that benefit low-income households. The 2 primary uses of our CDBG funds are for our Neighborhood Conservation and Improvement Program, or NCIP, and public services, which are typically provided by nonprofits such as Heart of the Valley, whom you heard from earlier. This slide shows, the previous slide showed the funds that were made available for programming. This slide shows how much we spent in the program year and which con plan goals were addressed. Our home dollars addressed affordable housing and fair housing needs, while our CDBG and other funding sources address public services and homeless needs. In total, we administered approximately $1.8 million on programs and activities that benefit the city's low-income population. So me being a visual learner, I like to see slides like this. This drills down a little bit on the previous slides. It shows the breakdown of how funds were used during the program year. TBRA may look like a large number, but keep in mind that home funds, again, are very restrictive, so the majority of our home funds are going to the TBRA program, while the CDBG funds, they're a little bit more flexible, and so CDBG funding gets spread over several categories. The purpose of the CAPER is to tell HUD our story of how we spent the funds that they gave us. What did we do? Who benefited? It would take too long to cover each activity's numbers and beneficiaries, but I did want to highlight 4 of our main activities. Our TBRA program assisted 44 previously homeless households consisting of 59 adults and 86 children. That's 145 people that are no longer homeless. Our NCIP program assisted 10 households, and you can see 7 of them are seniors, with improvements to their homes, such as accessibility improvements and addressing serious health and safety issues in their homes. And public facility improvements, such as accessibility improvements to City Hall and curb ramps, benefited approximately 20,000 persons. And our public services, you heard from Heart of the Valley, we provided primarily, public services are provided by nonprofits, and they benefit a variety of low-income populations, such as homeless youth, again, seniors, homeless families, and domestic violence survivors. So the next steps, the CAPER is due into HUD. It's before September 30th, but I think that falls on a Saturday or Sunday, so we have the deadline at September 28th. And after the CAPER is submitted, we go into our next cycle of outreach and planning for 2019-2020 Annual Action Plan. And then in the spring of 2019, our 2019-2020 action plan is submitted to HUD. Then this whole thing starts over again. That's the end of the presentation. Thank you for your time and attention. And if there's any questions or comments, I'll be happy to address them.
Okay, let me ask the council, are there any member of the council? Councilmember O'Neill?
Thank you. An area I've long been interested in and concerned about. So, and I'm very happy that we're now using the home funds for the TBRA program, because it seemed I learned a long time ago that the best way to help somebody out of homelessness is to make sure that they don't end up on the street, is to be able to keep them in the housing that they have, or to locate them into other housing before they hit the streets.
Right.
So is there our sense that we're meeting all the needs of folks that maybe are on the verge of homelessness, or families that are, in danger of losing their housing, or do we have a gap there that we need to fill? And can we respond quickly enough? And I'm just kind of curious, is Abode also providing, I know they do some of the case management, are they doing all the TBRA management also?
Correct. Abode is our administrator for our TBRA funds, and they also provide the case management services for the TBRA clients.
So are we, do we have enough funds to meet the need, do you think?
I mean, there's never enough funds, and unfortunately, homelessness is just getting more and more difficult. With my experience with the TBRA program, there's really no one answer. You have to do supportive services, case management, assist them in finding jobs that pay more than a living wage, quite frankly, and hopefully our TBRA program is enough to get them to the point where not only maybe they can increase their income, but also that affordable housing options become available.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other council members?
I do.
Oh, Vice Mayor.
I'm sorry, my light
Hers
was
isn't
not working. I apologize.
No, just speak up.
Okay,
Good.
that's
Yeah, good.
Thank you, Eric, for the report. I have a question, and it may be something that I need to refer back to staff, but I know that this fits in here. About 3 weeks ago, I met with residents out at John Burns Senior Center out in the Rivermark area, and since it's just down the street from me. And one of the discussions that I had with the residents was about how their rents have increased like 40% over the past year, and I met a couple that they receive $900 a month and are paying $850 a month for their rent. So and there's a transportation issue. So anyway, their director of social services actually sent a message to the council, but I had also spoken to her directly and spoke with her earlier about they've contacted Project Sentinel for guidance about the housing, with the housing authority, working with the housing authority, but they're finding that not much can be done because the city of Santa Clara doesn't have an ordinance, but it sounds like it's I don't know, something that maybe, again, needs to be referred back to to staff to look into further. And then I've also reached out to our assembly member, Kansan Chu, to talk about, is there something that we can do to protect seniors going forward, because they're not the only ones in this situation. And it's an issue that definitely needs to be addressed, and even if we have to take it to the state level. But do you have any recommendations, or is it something that we should just that I can refer back to staff and then work with you and see what we can do?
That would probably be my recommendation, because again, after the caper goes out, that's when we start doing outreach and planning for next year. And if that's something that is in line with our consolidated action plan goals, and we want to put money towards that effort, that's something that we can surely discuss and see if there's a strong sense out in the community that that's where the direction they want to put some funds.
Yes, okay, great. Thank you very much.
Sure.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Anyone else? Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. This is a public hearing, so the clerk, any cards? No? So if you'd like to speak, please just queue up here and you're welcome to speak. Any member of the public, please come forward. Welcome back.
I've already speaking once. I'm speaking for myself now.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, for Heart
Go
of the
ahead.
Valley too, because
Yes.
we see this all the time. I also live in a place that's affordable, in quotes, lower, but they raise the rent every year. They don't raise it as much as John Burns did, and every year there's more and more people that can't afford to live there anymore. I know that we've looked around for other people who need to move, and Heart of the Valley helps with that too. But this is my personal situation too. We see places like Catholic Charities has a place in Santa Clara that they say it's for very low income, but then when you go and investigate it, they say you have to have a minimum of $25,000 a year to be eligible for their very low income. So housing, affordable, and I mean truly affordable, not just $2,000 instead of $2,200. Truly affordable housing, especially for seniors, is a big, huge need. As a matter of fact, I would say it's the number one on the list of things that need to be looked at. And I know there's no money and all that kind of thing. I just wanted to put my 2 cents worth in on that particular issue, because it's everywhere. It's not just Santa Clara. It's the whole county. It's everywhere.
It's a crisis, you're
Yeah.
right. Thank you. Anyone else like to comment on the report?
I just wanted to say I thought
Yes,
the report
Teresa.
was very comprehensive and well done, and I really think with Jonathan and Eric and the rest of the staff that's been added, that we're really building a robust program, and hopefully we'll be able to find the money and a lot of the community support to really tackle a lot of these really extreme challenges that we face. So I want to thank them for all the work on compiling the information.
Thank you for bringing a lot of energy to this issue too, in terms of getting us really good information and really good data so that we can make some good decisions and try to find more money for this. So thank you. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Motion second to close the public hearing. Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Is there a motion for?
Move approval of the staff recommendation.
So there's motion and second for approval of the staff recommendation, which is to approve the funds and authorize the city manager to execute the documents for submission to HUD by September 30th. Please register your vote. Oh, this was already done. Thank you. It passes unanimously. Wait, we're missing? No, it's 5.
I'm sorry, it's still stuck on the last screen.
Okay. I thought it was a little slow there. Okay, so is that this motion?
It is.
Okay,
Yes,
and it passes unanimously. Thank you. So next we have update on the selection of a developer, speaking of affordable housing, for 2330 Monroe Street, the Affordable Housing Development Housing Authority property. Jonathan. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Jonathan Veach, Housing Division Manager. Tonight I'll be presenting an update on the selection of a developer for the Monroe Street Affordable Housing site. So the site in question is roughly 2.5 acre parcel that's city-owned, currently vacant. To the south of the site, the property adjoins the rear yards of 11 single-family residences, and across on the western part of the site, across San Tomas Expressway, we just opened a brand new city park. The zoning is for low-density single-family residential, and as part of the redevelopment, it would require a general plan amendment and a rezoning at a future date. This is a site map that shows the property highlighted in red, and just as I mentioned, to the west, across San Tomas, you'll see a vacant site that's currently now the new city park. And to the southern border of the property line, you'll see the 11 single-family homes with the rear yards that are adjacent to the site. I want to walk through the timeline really quickly. So tonight's meeting is really the culmination of almost a year's worth of work on this RFP. Last October, we presented a note and file report to City Council, and that was really to notify the public of our intent to engage with the community to start this process. Transparency has really been the cornerstone of this process since last October. Community engagement is important on every site that we work on, but especially this site, because there's been such a high degree of community interest on both what we're doing on the site now, but previous development proposals at the site as well. So that was all part of the context with how we really approach community engagement. So on December 7th, staff conducted a community engagement meeting at City Hall where we addressed topics covering affordability, site layout, density, and housing types. Using all of the feedback we gleaned from the community engagement meeting, we then issued a community survey, which was published in January. So all of that information was used to create a community visioning report, which was attached to the RFP. So attachment 1, I included the RFP, and as an addendum to the RFP in the back, you'll see the community visioning report. The visioning report presented all of the data that we collected through feedback and through the survey, and we actually listed every piece of feedback that we received over the course of 3 or 4 months. So everything is listed there. The RFP and community report were published on March 30th, 2018. The proposals were due on May 31st. We conducted interviews on June 18th, and we finally selected a developer in mid-July. I included just a few photos from our community engagement meeting. After a general introduction about affordability and the site, we did a round-robin format where the group broke up into groups of 10 and rotated, and you can see staff was facilitating discussions around the topics I mentioned. So we gave them guided questions and really tried to guide the discussion and get the most information we could in 2 hours. So by the numbers, we sent out 650 paper notifications to property owners within 1,000 feet of the property prior to the meeting. Over 50 participants showed up to the community engagement meeting. We filled the cafeteria. And then we received over 250 survey responses and over 250 additional comments that are all listed in the community visioning report. So we felt happy about the amount of community engagement we had with the site. So I wasn't able to fit all of the survey into one slide, but I did want to highlight 3 of the key questions that I thought really helped form this RFP. So you can see the questions and the responses on the PowerPoint slide, but number 1, related to affordability, there was a preference for a range of incomes that included moderate income and workforce housing. That was one of the themes. Related to density, there was a preference for the minimum density, which is 20 units per acre or 50 units at the site. And related to building height, there was a preference for 2 stories. So all of this data was made public and included in the RFP, and we really challenged developers to put together thoughtful proposals that would address all of these issues. It wasn't easy, and the proposals didn't necessarily have to address every piece of feedback, but we were looking for very thoughtful proposals that were sensitive to these issues. Ultimately, we received 8 proposals from highly qualified development firms. It was a very competitive process. From there, we were able to narrow it down to 3 developers, really based on 3 areas: financial feasibility. We looked through the pro formas and the underwriting, financial competitiveness, really the return to the city, and responsiveness to community feedback. Those were the 3 areas that differentiated kind of the 3 proposals we deemed the best. So we interviewed 3, and 2 turned out to be head and shoulders above the rest. It was Freebird Development Company and Santa Clara County Housing Authority. And so we followed up with a bunch of questions, and based on the responses we received, the interview panel was able to unanimously recommend Freebird Development Company. So a little bit about Freebird. They're a recently launched joint venture between Robin Zimbler and L&M Development Partners. Ms. Zimbler is a leader in affordable housing and mixed income development with over 15 years of experience and over $900 million in investments and transactions. Most recently, she served as the Senior Vice President of Affordable Housing for Related Companies in California. And her L&M is Robin's financial partner, and they're one of the largest and most highly regarded affordable developers in the country with over $7 billion in development, construction, and investment, really in New York and the Bay Area. And then Housing Choices Coalition will serve as the nonprofit partner. Housing Choices Coalition supports an active database of 168 Santa Clara residents with developmental disabilities, and this project proposes to set aside 20% of the units for individuals with developmental disabilities. Here's a conceptual site plan of the project. The original proposal was actually for 2 stories and 50 units. However, as part of the interview process, one of the questions we asked was, can they come back and propose more density at the site? And they did, and so attachment number 3 is the modified proposal. The modified proposal includes 3 stories and up to 65 units. One of the big issues was parking. It's always a challenge when you're trying to accommodate density at a site, but also through the community meetings, it was one of the larger themes was parking in this community and making sure there's adequate parking. And so the proposal includes 75 parking spaces for 65 units, but the 13 units that are set aside for individuals with developmental disabilities most likely don't need parking. So you really have 75 parking spaces for 52. It was a really smart way to accommodate density, but minimize the demand for parking and still come out at a ratio close to 1.5. So we thought that was a smart idea to add the units and still accommodate parking. The site plan also does a nice job of providing a setback from the property line at the southern portion of the site. So the access and the parking provide a barrier from the single-family residences. And there's also trees and fencing that are included. So we felt like they really paid attention to the community feedback report and implemented all of the mitigation solutions, I guess. So from a financing and transaction perspective, I just want to highlight a couple key points from the city's perspective. The city would retain long-term ownership of the site through a ground lease, most likely 55 years. We were able to limit our capital contribution to $75,000 per unit. The proposal leverages other subsidies, including over $12 million from tax credits. It would provide the city a return of its principal plus interest at a rate of 3%. It supports a broad income range, all the way from 30 to 120% AMI, but most importantly, not most importantly, but it includes the moderate income households, which are very tough to finance when there's not subsidies available. So this was the one proposal that was able to accomplish that. And as I mentioned before, 20% of the units are set aside for Santa Clara's growing population of adults with developmental disabilities. We have some representatives here who will speak a little bit more about the need for this population, but I would just add that a lot of the resources countywide are focused on homeless housing, and this is really a population that's underserved, and there's really not a lot of housing being created for this population. So this is the proposed unit mix and financing structure. And I would just say, as you look at the unit mix on the left, you can see that it's about as balanced as you can be. Every single AMI has about 10 units, ranging from 30 to 120. It's very difficult to accomplish that type of balance in an affordable project, and what we considered one of the key strengths of the proposal. And the 20% set aside not only minimized the parking demand, but it also accessed some financial resources that may not have been available otherwise. So another key consideration of the proposal is the extensive community engagement plan that was included in the proposal. The plan includes 5 community meetings during the initial design and quarterly project updates post-entitlements. These community meetings will be an opportunity for residents and neighbors to weigh in, further refine the project proposal every step of the way, just to make sure that we get it right. And I think the proposal did a good job of aligning with some of the community objectives, but this process would give us an opportunity to further evaluate the design, the materials, the density, and the open space, and all of those factors. Finally, just to reiterate, the project's a good investment for the city. When we looked at the cash flows around year 35, the city would anticipate recapture of its principal loan plus interest of about $4.5 million. And then from years 35 to 55, under the ground lease, we anticipate an additional $15 million of payments coming in through cash flow receipts that are tied to the ground lease. So next steps would be to start negotiating an ENA with Freebird Development, which would come back to council for further consideration. We'd continue community engagement, opportunities for the public, further refine the project design and transaction details as mentioned, and ultimately come back to council probably in 6 months to a year for a general plan amendment, rezoning, council consideration of a DA. That would all be after we talked about an ENA. So to conclude, staff's recommendation is for council to note and file staff's recommendation of Freebird Development's proposal, and 2, to direct staff to initiate negotiation of an ENA. With that, I'm available to answer questions, and I'd also note that representatives from the development team are here and will be available to introduce themselves and answer questions as well.
All right, excellent, excellent report. So are there any members of the council with questions for Jonathan? Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes, thank you. So very impressive proposal. It's something, you know, we've long been waiting for. First of all, I wanted to say I think the idea, the concept of having a substantial number of the units be made available to members of the developmentally disabled community is a really great idea. I think we all have either members of our family or in our friends who oftentimes have the challenges of having children that are now young adults or adults and wanting to make sure that they're going to be having a safe and a lovely place to live, particularly as their parents get older. And, you know, I have friends who have talked about, you know, the fears that they have about what happens when they pass away, what happens to their child that has special needs. So I really think that that's a wonderful aspect of the proposal. And, you know, I just have seen how young people with different types of developmental disabilities, particularly autism, like a friend of mine's son who is now actually, you know, they never thought he would be able to live on his own, and he lives on his own, and he now has a job working for SAP, and he's learning to do software coding. He got his degree from San Jose State. And so I think a lot of it was because he was encouraged to be and allowed to be as independent as he could be in spite of his autism. So I really like that aspect of the proposal very much. And one question I have is that, like I think in the other report it noted the availability of the boomerang funds, which is something I've been haranguing about for a number of years. And I know when you look at when I looked at the financial mix, you talk about potentially being able to get funds from Measure A. And I was wondering if a project like this, you know, because a few years ago, you know, I had talked with the county and they had you know, I was like very sad to see our housing funds get clawed back in the redevelopment dissolution. And the county had said that if we would, you know, agree and pass a resolution and they would, where we could get, they would boomerang back to us the portion that they received, the county share from our housing funds, if we had affordable housing projects. Did we look at possibly, if the Measure A funds aren't available, would the county be willing to use the pot of money, the boomerang funds that they, you know, committed to setting aside for future Santa Clara affordable housing?
I would probably say yes and no. So Consuelo Hernandez, who's the director of Office of Supportive Housing, was part of the interview panel, and we wanted to include her both because she has so much experience with these projects and seeing a robust development pipeline, but we really rely on the county as a partner to make these projects happen. So when we look across our affordable pipeline, we have a lot of projects that are proposing supportive housing and really using Measure A funds. So probably over $60 million are earmarked with the county right now for kind of all of the projects in the pipeline. So I would say that we have a really good working relationship with them. And in this project, really the primary financing source is not Measure A. It would be the state multifamily housing program that is anticipated to release a NOFA in 2019. But the developer reached out to the county as a backstop just in case those funds weren't available. And because we had the county as part of the interview panel, they reassured us that they can find a way to make it work. They didn't really identify whether it would be really Measure A or boomerang funds, but just that funds would be available.
Okay, great. Thank you. And maybe I'll just chime in too. I know that it maybe wouldn't be popular, but I did look at the option that had the additional units that were placed on a third story at the front of the property, and I would be interested in having us consider that. I mean, I think it was a very good design in terms of the way that the units were placed on the property. I know that some of the neighbors have had concerns in the past, and so I would just like to, during the community engagement process, that since we so rarely have a piece of land available, and perhaps, maybe more of those units could be made available for the developmentally disabled.
Yeah, most of the slides and the staff report is referencing the 65 unit proposal, and that unit breakdown and those subsidies, that was kind of staff's recommendation coming out of the process as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Watanabe.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much, Jonathan. This is very exciting, and especially after what happened the last time we tried to, or we were looking into putting a project on this site. I agree with Councilmember O'Neill about exploring the 65 units, or the highest and best use that we can get out of this piece of property. I like the disability component, because I've talked to residents who, the same thing, with autistic children, and that they would like them to be able to live independently, and we don't have anything like that in Santa Clara right now. So this is good to hear, that this is an opportunity to explore that and add that, facilities there, for disabled folks, because they would like to be independent. I like the idea. I like the layout here that's being proposed. I like the buffer, with the parking lot, and also the additional buffer off of San Tomas Expressway. It seems like it'll be like a little project on its own, but it looks really, it's well thought out, and especially like the time frame, that was used to just make sure that everything is vetted, and the community engagement, and there will continue to be community engagement. This is not the end of it. So 5 additional meetings, that sounds great, and just make sure that everybody's happy, because we need affordable housing. And so I'm happy to make a motion, actually, for alternatives 1 and 2 when the time is right. Thank you.
Okay, any other council members with questions? Thank you. I think we're going to go to the public now, and then just be available for any follow-up questions that may come forward. So I have a list of people that would like to speak. The first is Mitch Mankin, and then if Robin Zimbler could queue up after that. Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm here on behalf of SV at Home, which is the voice for affordable housing in Silicon Valley. And we'd like to commend staff, first of all, for the transparent and substantive community process and the RFP process you've had. And those are the processes that drove this recommended proposal we have before us today. We're excited by this proposal because it truly encapsulates the idea of housing for all. It has that broad range of affordability levels, all the way from 30% of area median income, all the way up to 120% AMI. And we also especially want to highlight those 13 homes for developmentally disabled, which are really especially needed in Santa Clara. All said, we think this project responds to the diverse housing needs of people with all incomes and all abilities who work and live in Santa Clara. And since we are in such a deep housing crisis, any significant delay in this kind of project is tantamount to denying housing to a senior, a family, or disabled person. So in order to maximize the number of affordable homes that are available, we encourage staff and the developer to explore the possibility of an increased density on this project. And we urge the city to work with the developer to include more units in a way that does not delay the process or make the project infeasible, given other existing constraints. Given this project is located on a housing successor agency site, it's imperative that the city does not impose any roadblocks that might inadvertently cause a lost opportunity here for housing. And with that, we'd urge the City Council to support the staff recommendation and allow staff to work with this developer to move forward that delay. And to also keep us informed, because we'd like to stay engaged throughout this process to help provide timely feedback on how this project can be further improved and be kept in the loop on future community engagement efforts. So with that, we look forward to continuing to work with the city on meeting our affordable housing goals. Thanks.
Thank you, Mitch. Robin Zimbler, and then Chris McCann after that. Good evening.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I'm Robin Zimbler with Freebird Development Company. Jonathan made my job easy tonight because he did such a thorough presentation. I promise not to repeat anything that was in the presentation. But I did want to introduce myself and give a heartfelt thank you to the interview panel and hopefully also to the council for selecting our team with Housing Choices. And Jan Stokely will be up here in a little bit to speak on behalf of Housing Choices. It's very exciting to work on this project, which we have coined inclusive workforce housing. We look forward to working with the community stakeholders, city staff, and the council in the coming months and years, unfortunately, to plan and build a project that we can all be proud of. If there are neighbors present here tonight, I'd love to meet you. So I'm going to be hanging out in the lobby for a little while after this action is taken and can give out my contact information. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for being available to the neighborhood and the community as well. Thank you. Okay, so the names keep going away, and I haven't called them yet. So, who was the next one?
Yes,
Sorry.
Mayor. Jan Stokely.
Oh, yes, please come forward. And then is Derry after that? They've disappeared. I'm sorry. Yes, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Gilmore and City Council members. I'm Jan Stokely, Executive Director of Housing Choices. We're so excited to be here with you tonight to talk about this project. Our organization focuses on creating quality, affordable housing options for people with developmental disabilities. We have an active list of 168 families who are working with us to help their adult with developmental disabilities transition into independent living. So this is really exciting. Housing Choices has a long history here in the city of Santa Clara. We were founded in the city. We were very involved with the city of Santa Clara in the closing of the Agnews. And the city was instrumental really in creating the first inclusive housing for people with developmental disabilities in the entire county. We support residents at Estancia Apartments and Rivertown Apartments, both of which was made possible by funding from the city of Santa Clara. So tonight's project picks up a legacy and a vision of what the city of Santa Clara's values are. And they're definitely ones of inclusion and respect and giving every person the opportunity to fulfill their possibilities. I am particularly pleased to see the focus on inclusive workforce housing. What's happened since you worked with us 15 or 20 years ago is that we have a whole generation of people entering their 30s who have been working hard to develop their independent living skills, and you'll see them working across the city. You'll see them working at Levi Stadium. You'll see them working at Safeway. You'll see them working at SAP. And so to have them be part of an inclusive workforce housing community is really tremendous. So I want to thank you for your consideration, and we look forward to continuing a collaboration with a city that's really been a leader in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Okay, I think I called Chris McCann next, and then Derry McCann after that. Or together.
We are together. We're the mother-daughter team. It is such a pleasure to be back here.
Nice to see you.
It's good to see everybody. I was the first executive director of Bay Area, or of Housing Choices Coalition, and I was involved with some of you up here I've seen over the years. And what Jan said is so true. Santa Clara has always been the leader of providing affordable housing for people with developmental disabilities. And this is my daughter, Darcy, who I'll give the stage to in just a second, but she is lucky enough to live in that inclusive housing development that we developed at Estancia, and she'll tell you a little bit about that. But what I wanted to say is that set-asides are such a wonderful way. And it's great for the people that are living there because it creates a better community for everybody that's in the development, not just the people that have the developmental disabilities. But I took Jonathan out and I had him for, 2.5 hours, and got to take him all over and show him the old Agnews property and show him the history and show him how proud the city should be for the amazing work that you've done. So we saw Estancia. We went over to John Burns Gardens. I was involved in the development of John Burns Garden with the Housing Authority, and I'm sad to hear about the senior, but we got set-asides in that for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We also got set-asides, and I know coming to the open houses and all of that, for Rivertown, which was a family unit. And then we did the most amazing, we did 3 homes that served as the precursor for closing Agnews. And I'm proud to say we were involved with closing it. We did 60 homes in the Greater Bay Area. 4 of them are in this community right here. And it's very exciting. So I just want to say I'm here supporting Jan, Housing Choices Coalition, and encouraging all of you to do more. And I keep saying to Jonathan, look out for more opportunities. So I'm going to turn over to Darcy because she can tell you firsthand what it's like.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chris. Darcy.
Let me get it.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you tonight. As my mom mentioned, I live at a... Sorry, I'm really nervous.
Don't be nervous. We're here. We're happy to have you here. Thank you so much for coming this evening to talk to us. And you live at Estancia?
Yes, since the very beginning of when it's been open, I really like where I live. I'm an active member of my community. There's about 450 units of throughout the complex, and I'm very lucky that I have a set aside. Not only do I give back to my community, but my staff. I live with a little girl that I'm able to impact. So, I was also born in Santa Clara.
Well, thank you. Thank you. We're so happy to have you here, and thank you for making a difference and helping the girl that you live with, and you're a role model for her. And thank you for testifying here tonight at the council meeting. Thank you. Thanks, Darcy. Yay. That's going to be a hard act to follow. Tom Yetter, you're next. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Darcy, I get nervous too.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I represent San Andreas Regional Center. We are a nonprofit agency that represents 4 counties, Santa Clara, San Benito, Monterey, and Santa Cruz County, for all those that have developmental disabilities. And we're in contract with the State Department of Developmental Services to see that the needs of those individuals are met on a quick and timely basis, thanks to the Lanterman Act here in California, a beautiful civil rights entitlement act. I've worked also with Housing Choices Coalition for, probably 18 years in a really successful partnership wherein we assign or pay for a resident coordinator to be on site 20 hours a week to help facilitate successful living in the residence itself, to interface with the management and whatever other needs arise to help those living there have a voice that they might not be quite able to find themselves, and to represent for them in times where rent might be an issue or circumstances that may come up that may threaten their presence there. So as a partner with Housing Choices, I just want to really recommend you choose this team and affirm it, because it's been, well, so far 15 successful properties, 4 of which Jan mentioned here in city of Santa Clara. But throughout our whole area, there are 15 properties that we've partnered with them on successfully and seen people live really long, successful and meaningful lives there. So thanks for your consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening.
And thank you for your testimony. Appreciate that. Anyone else? I don't have any other cards, so if you'd like to come forward, please come forward. Oops. Welcome back. Long time no see.
Hi, Mayor and Council. My name is Michael Petros. Last time I was here, I think I had like 400 of my neighbors with me. So it's fun to come back in a celebratory fashion. Jonathan's been awesome. Back last year, we got to work together and think of what we all wanted for something great. I work for the school districts. My wife does too, and I actually work in special ed and behavior. And a lot of what we worry about when we're with the little ones is where they're going to end up. And there is that fear of them outliving their parents and outliving their caretakers and maltreatment and all that comes along with it. So I'm happy that some of my little guys I'm with could be my neighbors one day. That's something I could celebrate. And yeah, I just wanted to point out about the maximum going above and of the numbers is we still have the community that's there too. And I would hate to see the faults of Silicon Valley overdeveloping in the past to land on our one little corner and have a ripple through our community that's already there of stuff we're dealing with. So the plan to me is fantastic. I just hate to see it go beyond that and then turn into something different. And so I just want to thank Jonathan again and thank you guys. And yeah, it's fun to be here being happy about something. In that corner, like I love our city. That sounded kind of pessimistic, I apologize. But thank you all very much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Hi.
Hi, thanks. Bob O'Keefe again. I was here for the study session on the last proposal. I believe it was the Sobrato proposal. And there was actually two sides. There was the Sobrato side, then there was the neighborhood side. And it actually got pretty ugly and a lot of communication. The project was just dropped. When I saw this project online, I was kind of doubtful. I looked into it a little bit, and I think the concept is fantastic. It covers, not just homeless, but it covers the working lower class, the working middle class, all the way down. It's inclusive of many, and it's going to have some sort of pride and possessionship of their own residents in there. So I know it's just in the concept phase, but please keep this up. And I appreciate Freebird having these 5 meetings with the community. And I hope and expect that a piece of city land is used for something like this. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Mario Bosa. I'd like to commend Councilmember O'Neill. We disagree on many things, but this is one thing that she's right on, and I agree with her 100%. One of the things, too, that I like to mention, San Andreas Regional Center does a lot of great work. I do some work for them, pro bono work for them, so I help them out a lot. So I'm very familiar with the disabled community and especially the adults growing into the needing homes. One of the things that I like to see in this project, too, there's a little pet peeve of mine, is I like to see trying to get some like teachers that are just been hired into our school district, try to make some of those residents accessible to them too. They're very, very valuable members of our community, and there's within less than 2 miles, there's 6 schools right there. So that would be really a real good take that we can start looking at too. And 75 parking spaces, I don't think it's going to be that many, because usually, even though this is going to be this in the disabled community, but it's already a parking issue around that area too. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please come forward. Good evening.
Hi, Gag here. I just want to make a quick comment. I don't even need 2 minutes on, but I know that during the presentation there was a comment that the parking, it was lower than we typically would want to have because the units with folks with disabilities don't need parking. I don't think that's a fair assessment. I think people who have developmental disabilities need parking. As a matter of fact, they may even need the parking spaces that have wider access for the ramps on the vans and the vehicles. So I don't feel that that was a fair assessment. I think that when the project is being developed, that a hard look is given to figuring out creative solutions to maybe put more parking and have some of the parking designated for the units with members with disabilities. On a side issue, one thing that is not related to this project, but speaking about making city services more accessible to folks with disabilities is something that I don't see here that I do see in other nearby cities, is closed captioning for our city council meetings. We don't see that at all, whether not just here in the chambers, but even on the live stream. So that should be something we would consider. I know it's not related to the item on hand, but thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on the issue? Okay, I don't have any other speaker cards, so I think it is Vice Mayor Watanabe, you wanted to...
I'd like to second Councilmember Watanabe's motion.
And her motion was to...
Staff recommendation.
The motion is to move staff recommendation to note and file staff's recommendation of Freebird Development's proposal for the development of 2330 Monroe Street, and also direct staff to initiate negotiation of an exclusive negotiation agreement with Freebird Development for future council consideration.
Thank you. So there's a motion and a second. Any comments? Vice Mayor Watanabe, did you have comments?
No, ma'am.
I just wanted to say thank you to Jonathan, Eric, and the staff for putting together this proposal, but most of all, thank you for coming up with the public engagement process to talk about this project from where we were over a year ago to the previous project that was proposed to where we are today is pretty much night and day in terms of you know, what it really looks like when you survey, when you outreach, when you talk with your community about, you know, the type of project that is, you know, acceptable and compatible, you know, with our existing neighborhoods. I think that, you know, this is a perfect example of going out and doing really the proper outreach and having a developer that really listens, that's listening. And I know we're not talking about the specifics of the project this evening in terms of number of parking spaces and heights and unit counts and things like that, but that will come through a series of more outreach and community interactions in terms of the actual development, the way the development will ultimately look. It has a process it has to go through. But I think the intention and the willingness of everyone, including the neighborhood, to have an open mind and look at this project to be something that we're all going to be proud of, to have this broad range of affordability with all these other issues, is something that I think at the end of the day, with everyone working together, that this is going to be a project that we're all going to be very, very proud of. So thank you, everybody, for your willingness to communicate, talk to each other, and I think at the end of the day, it's going to be something really great. So we have a motion and a second. Please register your votes. And that passes unanimously. Thank you all very much. Okay, going back to the agenda. The next item we have on the agenda is action on the audited Santa Clara Stadium Authority fiscal year 2017-18 annual financial statements, and now we're under Stadium Authority items. I see our Finance Director, Angie.
Good evening. Thank you. So tonight I'm going to be presenting the Santa Clara Stadium Authority 2017-18 financial statements. I'll be back before you in December to do the citywide financial statements, which is what we call our CAFR. So just wanted to briefly go over the audit limitations and methodology. This was an audit of the Stadium Authority's financial reports and processes, not any other city entity like I had mentioned earlier, nor any 49ers entity. This financial audit is an independent evaluation of the Stadium Authority's financial reports and reporting processes to provide reasonable assurance that the financial statements are accurate and complete. And this is not an absolute guarantee, as in with any audit, that there are no human errors or miscommunications that would lead to a mistake. Through various audit processes and procedures, auditors determine if controls and processes are in place to produce accurate and reasonable financial statements. A quick overview is we contracted with KPMG to complete the annual audit of the Stadium Authority's financial statements as required by Section 5.1A of the credit agreement. And as I mentioned earlier, the financial statements cover the 2017-18 fiscal year, which for the Stadium Authority runs from April 1st to March 31st, with comparative data from the previous fiscal year. We did receive an unmodified, which is a clean audit opinion, which is expressed by the auditors. And this was presented to the audit committee on August 27th, 2018, where they accepted the report and recommended that it be note and filed to the Stadium Authority today. These reports are available on the city's Stadium Authority webpage. Some key financial highlights: the Stadium Authority's net position increased by $10.9 million when compared to the prior year. Total assets were $847 million, with the Levi Stadium being the largest asset with a carrying value of $765 million. And total liabilities were $804 million. Debt service payments during the fiscal year totaled $68 million, and that includes principal and interest. And overall outstanding long-term debt decreased by $47 million due to the principal. During this fiscal year, there were 10 National Football or NFL games, 13 ticketed non-NFL events, and 113 smaller special events such as holiday party, corporate parties, weddings, birthday parties, things like that. The Stadium Authority recognized $108.5 million in operating revenue. One of the revenues I just would like to call out is the non-NFL event revenue of $55.2 million. And then we also had the rents and licensing revenues of $43.2 million, with the stadium lease rent equaling $24.5 million. The Stadium Authority recognized $90.1 million in operating expenses, and again, I'd like to call out the non-NFL expenses of $50 million. I did put a bullet at the bottom too. Revenue from the non-NFL events totaled $55.2 million, and the related expenses were $50.0 million, resulting in a net non-NFL event revenue to the Stadium Authority of $5.2 million. And with that, that completes my report, and be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any members of the Stadium Authority Board with any questions? Board Member O'Neill.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. And I noticed reading I know, and most of the time in audits like this, you don't get a lot of audit comments because they're, it's not a performance audit. It's just a straight review of the financial statement. But I know with the numbers on that have always been a little bit controversial have been some of the numbers on the revenue, like for the non-NFL events. And we've had different discussions about being able to kind of drill down, and I know some of your staff have been able to kind of to look at things, but are we making any progress on being able to really get data to analyze? Because me, I'm like, why aren't we doing crooked? Why aren't we doing in terms of being able to look at how successful some of the events are and whether, to think about strategically where we want to go?
So we've had several attempts to try to receive possession of documents, and both by way of PDF documents, actual hard copy documents. We recently met with Manco and agreed to receive a download of their accounting information, and we're in process of validating that information. So we'll be able to respond once we get through the thousands and thousands of line items that we have in an Excel document.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
And I'd just like to add that with the addition of Lynn Lamb as our Stadium Authority, she will also be doing some of those reviewing of documents.
That's great. Yay. Okay. Thank you, Angie. Any member of the public? I don't have any cards here. Would anyone like to speak on this issue? Please come forward. Good evening.
Hey, so I'm Haggai here again, and that's the first time I've heard that we've made progress on the documents in years, so yay for real. My question is, and we've done this, I've asked this question time and time again, how is it that we keep approving these audits without looking at the line items. And so I am questioning again tonight whether, again, at no fault of city staff or, you know, on the city's fault of their own for not having the detailed breakdown and taking the 49ers and the management company at their word for the line items that they have been withholding from us. So the question is, how is it that we can approve, or the council can approve, or the stadium authority rather, should approve this audit and note and file it without actually having done the due diligence to be able to vet and verify that the numbers make sense. I look at that, if you don't mind going back one slide. Sorry, the other way. It's great that we made $5.1 million, but what the heck did we spend $50 million on? And we won't know that information unless we look at the detailed breakdown. So, I mean, of course, it costs money to run events, and we hope that, and we have made more money than it cost us to run those events. But man, it cost us $50 million to run 13 non-NFL events. I want to know what that breakdown is, and I can't quite understand how we can approve the audit without looking at that breakdown. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Those are some good questions. Maybe the stadium authority director could answer.
Sure.
Yeah.
I just want to state that as with any audit, there are always audit limitations. And we did start with our first slide here, and I can just restate them, and then I'll go into the second question. So the audit is limited to the independent evaluation of the stadium authority's financial reports and reporting processes. So that's what it's testing for, to provide reasonable assurances that the financial statements are accurate and complete. So that is the scope as well as the limitations of the audit. It doesn't mean that the auditors have gone through every granular level on the Excel documents that I just referenced, but they tested the financial statements for accuracy and completeness based on information that was provided. That said, while the audit is complete and is an unmodified finding, we are also in process of bringing back the fourth quarter report. And unfortunately, I won't be here on October 2nd, but I've wanted to let you know that it will have a couple of new features to it based on previous conversations that the council had, including more data around volume of information with respect to volumes of tickets sold, volumes of parking activity, some information related to the non-NFL events that has surfaced often here. And so you will receive additional information that we've been able to verify. But it really depends, and I've said this publicly, until we can go through the granular level of the information, I'm very reluctant to state that that the information is validated and complete. And so it is, but you have the auditor's assurance based on what access they've had to information, and that's about as best as you can get at this point in time.
So it's the auditors that were provided this information that they put on the right lines that, I mean, we're noting and filing this.
They do a series of tests. They do a series of tests, yes. And they've given you reasonable assurances that the financial statements are accurate and complete. And it doesn't mean that they've gone through all of the line items, but these are professionals, and you know, their own professional integrity with respect to auditing, which is highly rigid in its ethical practices and as well as its methodologies. And there is an unmodified finding, which is the highest that you can get. And there's more information that's coming your way on October 2nd.
Well, they're reporting the information that they were given. Yes. I mean, that's all we can say about this.
That's all they can say, and that's the limits to the report.
Because even at the audit meeting, I asked, well, can you tell us how much money comes to our general fund from a concert? The answer is no. So anyways, I'm okay noting and filing the report, and I don't know what else to say. Authority Member O'Neill.
Yes, thank you. So, so Angie, I think, you know, one of the things you have to recognize is that, I mean, one of the most important things, not the most, but one of the important things is that we're making progress on paying down our debt, because, you know, we know that because we have all those, you know, Goldman Sachs and do we still have anything with Bank of America? Whatever the body of.
Yeah, I think there is in the trust. There's a
Yeah.
Bank of America.
So yeah, if we weren't making those payments, we would have heard about it. So we know at least that part of it. And also submitting this report is a condition of our financing, correct?
We have to do it.
So we have to send the report in, and like I said, they're getting the money that, you know, so that landlord's being paid. So they're happy. So from my view, I mean, that's what the number one value of this report is, that we're fulfilling our requirements on our financing. And you know, I'm grateful that we've made the progress that we've made on paying down that debt, because I know that was a very big pill for a lot of people in the community to, you know, seeing that amount of debt. So we're making good progress on that, and we're just going to have to continue to drill down to, you know, this is a very, this financing is even more complicated than what it takes to build 55 units of affordable housing, believe it or not. It's a kind of a toss-up, which is more difficult. But with all of the waterfalls down from all these different buckets, you know, then eventually we hope to have a little cup underneath there catching for our general fund. But so thank you very much for the report.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, any member of the public? Okay, and no more? All right, is there a motion to note and file? Motion and a second to note and file. And thank you very much to the auditors. I don't see them here, but they're not here, but please send our thanks. Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, reports of members and special committees. Any council members want to report anything?
Well, I just was going to make a comment. Even though we continued the policy on gifts till a future meeting, when I was reading that, it said that we're supposed to note anytime we received a gift. Well, I think a number of us received a little box with a mirror in it and some chopsticks and spoons from some university in Korea. So I will, on behalf, I guess if that's the policy, I'll disclose that was left on my desk. But
I was in a meeting when those were, I just left mine here in the city, so, yeah. Is that a mirror?
If you open up the box, there's a mirror inside.
Oh, I just left it here, so.
It looked like it wasn't too expensive.
You spoiled it. I didn't
I'm
open
often
mine
being
yet.
presented, I just leave them here, and then they're noted and retained here by the city, so. Okay, thank you for that, Councilmember O'Neill. Anyone else? Here, members, committees? Okay. City Manager, Executive Director report.
I have a couple reports out. So just a reminder that this weekend is the Art and Wine Festival at Central Park for both days. And then next weekend on September 22nd, we'll be celebrating the grand opening for the Mission Branch Library. And last week, Mr. Kim came to request additional consideration for 2 items related to his Korea Day event. The first was a media expense, roughly around $2,000, and the second was insurance coverage for the event at about $210. That was the information that he had requested. Because the council took action on the use of the public funds for the purpose of issues related to sound and the stage and the bathrooms and issues related to public safety and health. These items did not qualify, although you could, by extension, say that the event could not have occurred without insurance, and therefore would allow for me, or by consensus allowed to pay the $210. But other than that, that's the reason why we did not take action, because they were not covered, and the council spent a lot of time deliberating on what to cover and what not to cover. And so we did put it in the city manager's blog, but I did want to call that to your attention. And then also included is, in your packet, is an information memo on the status of the Tourism Improvement District financial audit. If you recall, on August 28th, the council directed an audit on the TID as well as appropriated the funds and to amend the contract with TAP International. We have, in the information report as of last Friday, we were reporting that we were not able to get the necessary documents to transmit them to the auditor, or for the auditor to receive them directly for purposes of completing the audit. I just want to report that some information came in today. The auditor needs to confirm whether she has the information to complete the audit. It's not a decision for me to make, but to the extent that we do hear back from the auditor that she has what we need, we'll report that out. If not, then we'll certainly prepare an update for the City Council.
Do we need to take any action on your memo?
No
Or is it
action
just
on
for
the memo, it's just
information
note
only?
and file.
Is there a motion to note and file?
Second.
Any discussion on that? Any member of the public?
Yeah.
Oh, did you want to say
I
something, Vice
yes,
Mayor? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, I read your reports, City Manager, and I was just surprised that, I mean, I'm glad to hear that you received some documents today, but actually I was surprised because based on, you know, the last meeting where, and I see he's here, you know, President, you know, Nick Casper from the Chamber, you know, spoke and said, you know, that you were looking forward to working with the council and providing documents, and I really felt like, I mean, I came away from that portion of the meeting feeling like, you know, all was good and that we were going to start working together. So I was disappointed, frankly, when I read your report. So, but I'm glad you've received something today, and I hope it is what you need to, you know, move the audit, moving it forward. So thank you.
Nick, if you'd like to come forward. Nick.
Hello, Nick Caspar, Chamber of Commerce, registered lobbyist. We did submit the information on that Friday, but it was in the wrong format. It was a PDF, and they wanted a Excel format. And so then it did take us some time to resubmit that information, about 7 business days to resubmit that, and we did today. During that time, we were also responding to the other audit, and that's why there was a delay, because a lot of our staff time went to responding to the other audit along with getting all the information needed for this audit. So we did submit the information, and there was a follow-up request to provide it in a different format, along with provide some documents that were missing. But we are here to work with you guys. It was just we're responding to the other audit and then this audit too, and so it took about 7 business days. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on the floor to note and file. Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. So that leads us to our adjournment. I have a few things here. So the first adjournment we have is in memory of Donald Korn. He was a City of Santa Clara Parks and Recreation Department employee. Don Korn began working for the City of Santa Clara Parks and Recreation Department on July 29, 1991 as a part-time laborer, and was later hired as a permanent city grounds maintenance worker, 1 for the Parks Division November 20th, 1994. Over his 24-year tenure, Don was assigned to maintain numerous park facilities, including the Community Recreation Center, Larry Marcelli Park, City Park Plaza Park, Civic Center Park, Raymond G. Gamma Dog Park, and Rotary Park, among others. Don had a particular expertise in floor reconditioning, painting, masonry, and park furniture sealing and staining, in addition to his other tasks. During the past 2 years, Don was a qualified applicator assigned to weed control across the city park system, particularly due to his attention to detail, safety, and precision. Don was a great mentor, connecting with junior park division staff members on a one-to-one basis, giving pointers and advice, and successfully training several senior staff members over the years. Don had 2 strong passions, fishing and riding his motorcycle. Unfortunately, he passed away on the afternoon of August 27, 2018, while riding his motorcycle on vacation. Our next adjournment is in the memory of Elizabeth Liz Call Jones. mother of West Valley Mission Community College District Board President Ann Kempner, also a Santa Claran. Elizabeth was born and raised in Niagara Falls, New York, to Eleanor Sappington Call and Leroy John Call Jr. In 1974, Liz and her first husband settled in West San Jose with their two daughters, Anne and Rebecca. She married James Holmes in 1988. Liz earned a bachelor's degree in English literature from the University of Rochester and earned a master's degree in business administration from Santa Clara University in 1987. She enjoyed a 30-year accounting career in the high-tech industry. As a 25-year survivor of an aggressive form of breast cancer, Liz was an advocate and consistent fundraiser for breast cancer prevention partners. She and her husband Jim shared their love of nature, backpacking in the Sierra Nevada when their children were young, exploring national parks, and most recently, traveling by train through the Canadian Rockies. She was thrilled to welcome 6 grandchildren into her life in a span of less than 2 years. From attending her grandchildren's sporting events, volunteering in their classrooms, and traveling to Portland for weekend-long trips to support her daughter's family, Liz was proud of her children and grandchildren and enjoyed being an active part of their lives. Liz is remembered for her strength, goodness, kindness, loyalty, wisdom, and compassion. Also, today is September 11th, Remembrance Day. The September 11th attacks were a series of 4 coordinated terrorist attacks against the United States on the morning of Tuesday, September 11th, 2001. The attacks killed 2,996 people, injured over 6,000 others, and caused at least $10 billion in infrastructure and property damage. Additional people died of 9/11 related cancer and respiratory diseases in the months and years following the attacks. Today marks 17 years since the tragic September 11 attacks against the United States. September 11 is one of the darkest days of our nation's history. So let us please have a moment of silence in remembrance of those who lost their lives from this terrible, terrible tragedy. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.